Jimi Hendrix, Both Sides of the Sky is produced by JIMI Hendrix, Eddie Kramer and John McDermott. Both Sides of the Sky is the third in a trilogy of albums that started back with Valleys of Neptune and People, Hells and Angels. And what this is a collection that digs back into the Hendrix catalogue. And what we have here is 13 songs, 10 of which have never been released before, which is really cool. And it spans between the studio sessions from roughly 1968 to 1970. The album opens with an absolute bang with the Muddy Waters track, Manish Boy. And this one was reworked into something that had a little bit more up-tempo and a little bit more energy. Jimmy's iconic playing is right here from the very first note, as well as his soulful vocal delivery. Loverman continues that trend with Billy Cox's bass, and his bass playing really bounces on this track, as well as Buddy Miles's drumming really pushes this song forward. I gotta say, it's a fantastic rhythm section that's really captured on these recordings because they are like glue, these two, and it really allows Jimmy to go ahead and do his thing. Hear My Train A-Comin' is a reunion of sorts for the original lineup of the Jimi Hendrix Experience here, which of course was Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell. And I've got to say guys, this is a great version of this song here, and if you guys recall, Jimmy always loved to play this song live, and just like a lot of Jimmy's catalogue, this 7-minute version of this song is something pretty special indeed. Stepping Stone is a previously unreleased track, and my gosh, it's awesome. I mean, what a track. This song explodes out of the gate with furious energy and musicianship. The only disappointment here is that it's taken this long for this song to get an official release, but I'm so glad it's finally made it. Power of Soul is a perfect example of a song that can really engage a listener instrumentally. In fact, there's not a lot of lyrics here. The first verse doesn't kick in until after the 2-minute mark, and it just goes to show that you don't necessarily need a lot of lyrics to get your song across. Even at the 6-minute mark, I gotta say this song is fantastic, and for me, it's gonna be worthy of a lot of repeated listeners. The only problem with Both Sides of the Sky is I'm having difficulty trying to highlight tracks on this album because all of these tracks are highlights for me. There's really no duds on this album. Both Sides of the Sky is pretty special in the sense that we're getting to hear a lot of Jimmy's music that hasn't been released officially previously. But to add to that as well, it's also a special release because there's an incredible lineup of guest musicians on this album, including Stephen Stills. Now, he's got a track on here called $20 Fine, and he lends his vocals and organ playing to that one. We've also got Johnny Winter, who plays guitar on Things I Used to Do. And to add to that as well, we've also got Lonnie Youngblood, who provides vocals and sax on Georgia Blues. Jimi Hendrix, John McDermott and Eddie Kramer serve as the production team on this album, and they've actually done every Hendrix release since 1996, and I think that's pretty cool. Eddie Kramer goes all the way back as he served as a recording engineer for every Jimmy album that the artist released in his life. And he went on record to recently say that Jimmy felt most at home in the studio. That's where the magic happened. That's where the music happened. And I think this release is a perfect example of that. These guys have really worked hard to keep the integrity of these recordings intact. So there is a little bit of a polish in the mastering stage here where there's a slight lift in the highs, maybe a little bit of compression here and there, but they haven't gone too far with any modernized production here. A little rough around the edges, and I think that's the way it should be. What I love about Jimi Hendrix on recording then and also now listening to some of these songs for the very first time is the improvisational element that's so strong, so present in this music that unfortunately is sadly lacking in a lot of today's music. What we have here are great musicians through most of this track listing that are just putting their instruments on and exploring them. And that spontaneity gives this music a lot of spark and a lot of fire and so much energy. There's no studio overdubs, well, very minimal because a lot of these recordings are quite live. There's no studio magic, there's no click track. It's just great musicians playing, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about music, and it's really present on this album. We also have an artist that was really trying to continue pushing the boundaries of what he could create in a studio setting. And once again, this album is a great reflection of who Jimi Hendrix is as an artist and as a musician. The only slightly nitpick here would be that some listeners may get a little bit restless with some of the longer track lengths on this album that clock in over 6 minutes. For me personally, I couldn't get enough of this album. Guys, look, there is a reason why people are still interested in Jimi Hendrix 50 years later. And I got to say, people are still going to be interested in this legendary artist 50 years from now as well. This is a great essential buy if you're a huge Jimi Hendrix fan. It's also an essential buy if you're a blues music fan. And I also think it's a great place to start if you've never experienced Jimi before. I'm going to give Jimi Hendrix Both Sides of the Sky an A. Guys, have you heard Both Sides of the Sky yet? What did you think of it? Let me know in the comments below what you thought, and of course let me know while you're there what your favorite Jimi Hendrix song is of all time. Until next time guys, remember, support the artist, buy the music. Rock on. Never been released before. That span with recordings of Hendrix's catalogue. Hendrix's, that's not even a word.